forgot, and I looked over at my notes.
Morning.
Like, oh,
record at least one of them.
I'm recording.
But that was okay, because then you guys can get back in and look at this later. Okay. Copy it again, Katie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's not, you guys, it's not the presentation you're saying, you're just seeing this document with us, that this allows you to make a copy of it, to play with it and make changes to it like we're going to do. So
yeah, we don't really have a presentation for you guys. We just are sort of showing you some different tools and just some different considerations to have. So I was telling people earlier about this bust document. My background is speech language pathology, and I was a speech language pathologist in middle schools always. And I knew that in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they learned figurative language every year in English. So it was always a good thing to ask the kids because they were supposed to know about it. And one of the figurative languages that we taught them was hyperbole, which is exaggeration for effect, which is what this abomination of a document is. So what we want you to do, Karen is watching chat. I'm driving the document, much like the pigeon drives the bus. And you guys are going to call out things that are wrong with this document and what about them makes them wrong.
So what's the first thing you guys put? So your bunch of your notes
in. Different size fonts.
Yeah.
Fonts, right? Size fonts, different styles of font, right?
What's wrong with this style of font? It's so pretty.
It's not easy to read.
No.
It should be sans serif. It should be sans serif, like Verdana or Tahoma or Calibri, in order to negotiate, unless you're dealing with a dyslexic student who would probably benefit from Comic Sans.
Oh my
God. You guys are good. And that's exactly right. Somebody also said that the text is pushed to the right. Yeah, the text is right justified, which it shouldn't be, right? So Katie's showing two different kinds of font there with those R's. Can you guys see those two R's at the top?
The highlighted one is sans serif. It does not have any little feet at the bottoms of the strokes of the two legs of the R. I probably just missed about 15 opportunities to use terminology there, sorry. And the other R is serif, and it has these little feet and little bits sticking out. And it's harder for some students with dyslexia to read serif font than it is sans serif font. So it's a good call, a good readability choice to make things sans serif. So the font choice is atrocious. Don't worry, that continues through the whole document. What else?
Poor line breaks in the chart. The heading is a weird combination of capitals and lowercase. Yeah, there's lots of things wrong with that table down there, right?
Oh, somebody called the line. Oh yeah, the line breaks are awful. There's also, I don't think we mentioned this last time, some of this is double spaced and some of it is single spaced.
Yeah, somebody knows that already.
Nice guys.
Or spacing, yeah.
So in case you can't read this, it says a document for you to practice identifying the season of the year. So this is the point of this activity is to look at a picture and say what season it is and what about the picture tells you what season it is.
Yeah, somebody said that the title is too wordy too. We agree with that. Yeah, it's just kind of best practice, right, would be to make a much simpler, shorter title. Absolutely.
Especially
lots of blank space. Look like if the document ends, you don't know if it ends and then it keeps going, right? Good.
We have a big awkward page break right here. And then what's with this picture?
Picture's just kind of right in the middle, right? Yeah, the picture is too long and the words below it don't seem to fit. You're right. It's like the picture came in the middle of a paragraph or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Does not belong there.
Excellent. So you guys are finding lots of the errors that we put in here on purpose for you.
What else is wrong with this?
Somebody mentioned the color contrast with the blue and white.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so
Further
good.
down, the blue and white little line there with the light blue and the white text. And
If you're just watching the screen, you might not be able to see that the blue is actually hyperlinks. They're all hyperlinks to Wikipedia, and that is because this is just copied and pasted from Wikipedia. What do we think about that?
not the best idea, somebody said. Thumbs down.
Look, there is no citation. And then this happened.
And they said the table boxes aren't formatted properly to fit the words in without breaking them up, which is very true. It's not at all formatted well, right?
It is deliberately
Yeah.
formatted to be the worst possible. In
This
fact,
is
look what happens when you try and use read and write to have it read aloud. I don't know if you could hear it, but it said the CISO in is went,
Yeah.
and then it just stopped.
Somebody asked Katie if everything before the table is copied from Wiki page. Yes, right?
Yes. Everything before the table is just copied and pasted from Wikipedia. There's no citation, no nothing. So think about what audience this activity is for and the kind of information that I put up here. The Northern Hemisphere experiences more direct sunlight during May, June, and July as the hemisphere faces the sun. The same is true of the Southern Hemisphere. It is Earth's axial tilt that causes the sun to be higher in the sky during the summer months, which increases the solar flux. I ask you, good people, is all that really necessary?
Yeah, I agree. Somebody said kids can't read cursive, and I kind of agree because we're in such a digital age. Kids are used to reading print, right? They're not used to reading handwriting like this. So this would be very difficult for a lot of our students to read. I agree.
Let me actually start fixing some of this stuff. We didn't do this last time, but I'd like to try and fix some of it. So I should put in a sans serif font. So we'll put it in Arial. And we will left align it. And
already.
What should we do with this picture, guys? Oops.
Yeah, somebody said blocks of text like this would discourage my intermediate English learners, right?
Yes.
They're saying
Exactly.
crop the picture.
Crop the picture?
Somebody said we should Grackle it, Katie, so I think we ought to do that.
Oh, we should Grackle it. That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea. Okay, so let's do some Grackle. If you guys don't know how to get to Grackle or don't know what Grackle is, it is a tool that checks to see how accessible your document is for people with disabilities. And the things that Grackle says needs to be done are dictated by laws and guidelines that are already existing and apply to federal documents that are published online that all must be accessible to people with disabilities. That's where they get everything from. And you go to add-ons over here, Grackle Docs, and launch. Oh, look, we have some problems. Who would have ever thought? So
you guys can see 18 out of the 22 checks passed. So it's not too bad, but there's still over 5 things.
and like you guys pointed out, there were lots of things wrong with this document that are not even going to show up on Grackle. Grackle doesn't check your font choice. Grackle doesn't check to see if you are using an appropriate grade.
That's really good.
Grackle doesn't catch all that stuff. And sometimes even things that it looks for, it doesn't catch. So you need to be aware of just general good design as well as little behind the scenes stuff that's necessary for accessibility. So one thing that it says is the document title is required. But we have a document title. Title's right here. Why is it saying that we don't have a title? Well, it's because we haven't told the computer that this is, and the reason that that's a problem is because of screen readers. I'm going to explain really quick what a screen reader is, because it's different than what read and write does. I know a lot of you know what read and write does. If you hit the play button, it will read the text out loud to you, but it will start reading at a document for you to practice identifying. It's not going to read you the title up here. It's not going to read you file, edit, view, insert. If you click on the menu, it's not going to read you all this stuff. And a screen reader will read all that stuff for you. And the reason that you might want all of that read explained to you is if you have significant vision impairment or you're blind and you are relying on.
Okay.
Katie,
Ma'am?
somebody needs to mute. There's a lot of background noise. Somebody's moving around in the kitchen behind you or something, making noise. Do you know who that is? You mute your microphone.
Thank you.
There we go.
So when a screen reader is reading and explaining a document to a person who can't see, it needs to know what all the different parts of the document are. So you need to have a part of the document that's labeled as the title. And if you click on document title is required, you can tell it to use the Google Doc name as the title, which would be copy of busted document. You can also set the document title yourself right here by clicking edit. And then you can type your title right here. You can also manually set it to be a title using this little drop-down styles guy right here that gives you all of your headings, your title, your subtitle, and will even outline those things over here for you. So if you have a heading, it'll show up over here as a place you can click to and jump to, and it will explain to a screen reader what part of the document it's on. So I can still make this big if I want to. That's not going to change the fact that it's labeled as the title now.
Go ahead and recheck, Katie, and see if the title got fixed.
Yep, we have a title now. So, images should have alternate text or mark as artifact. What does that mean? Well, if I had maybe the school logo over here, if I had some stars, or if I had a decorative border or a smiley face or something that's just for decoration and is just meant to make it look good and not meant to really convey any meaning, that is what I would label an artifact. If it's an important picture, which these would be, because you have to look at the picture in order to answer the question, then you need to give it alternate text. And alternate text will tell the screen reader what the image is. So what you do is you can either use Grackle to say it'll locate and then tag, and you just type a brief description of what your picture is. Honestly, I would probably mark this one as an artifact, and if I was actually making this a functional document, I would delete this picture. And just give enough of a description so that if you weren't looking at it, you could still understand enough to keep going with the assignment, and then you would hit update. And you need to do that for all of your pictures. And you can do that as you make the document by right-clicking your picture and going to alt text. And then you can say what kind of thing it is and what it looks like. And it explains to you that alt text is accessed by screen readers for people who might have trouble seeing your content. So it's sort of like a caption, but it's invisible to you. You can't see it, and the only reason you'll ever hear it is if you're using a screen reader.
One thing, you guys, quickly that we talked about is we're talking about readers and people with visual impairment. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, I don't have any students with visual impairments on my caseload. I don't need this, right? But one thing we have to consider is the adults at home that are working with the students, right? Maybe the mom has a visual impairment and she has to help the student on the Chromebook to do these assignments, and maybe she would need to use that kind of thing, right? Or, you know, this is like Katie talked about, this is sort of just best practice. And you might not have a student with a visual impairment this year, but maybe next year you will. So you're going to get this all ready to go. It's going to be set up appropriately. And then once you get a student with a visual impairment, now you're all set. Okay? So just good practice to get the habit of doing this.
I would also point out that not every student with a vision impairment has an IEP or needs an IEP. Maybe their vision is correctable, but it's sort of a strain, and maybe they prefer to have things read out loud or to use a screen reader. Color blindness is a vision impairment that a lot of people have, and kids don't have IEPs for color blindness, but if solely relying on their eyes, then they might struggle to access some content if they're colorblind. So the choices that we're talking about making are just good overall design choices, because you never know what issues somebody might struggle with that needs to access your content. And even if people aren't struggling with issues, this just makes the document easier on the eyes, and just you have to spend less mental energy trying to sort through the document and more mental energy on the actual content of the document, if that makes sense. If you're math folks, your equations should be described. I am not a math person, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. I know that if you use Equatio to type your math equations, then you are all good, and it will be able to read them out loud for you. But that's something you need to think about if you're a math person. We also were having people ask us about accessibility in Schoology at our first session. Read and Write does work with Schoology, and Schoology says that it plays nicely with screen readers that I don't have access to, so I'm assuming they're right. You need to keep this information in mind when you are putting content into Schoology. Schoology doesn't have Grackle, but you should still, use a sans serif font and make it a readable font size, and use alt text for your images if Schoology allows you. And if not, you can put captions to your images that describe them, so that if you're using any kind of read aloud software, even if you can't do alt text, it still will have a built-in description for it. And of course, any content that you link to in Schoology should be accessible as well. So that's why we're kind of taking you through this, because Grackle might not catch everything you need it to for accessibility. So headings are always good to break up long documents. Tables. Karen, talk about the trouble we had with tables and those hyperdocs that were all the rage in the spring.
Yeah. You guys remember those hyperdocs from the spring that were a table, right? And so on the left-hand part, it had the standard, and then it had some content. And then on the right-hand part was like tips and tricks for parents, right? Well, that was a really difficult layout because a screen reader is going to read from left to right, from top to bottom of that document. So let's read across, read the standard, read some of the content, read some of the parent information, then go back, read more content, read more parent information. So it would have been totally confusing to a person with a screen reader to have that layout. Would have been better to have those parent tips down below, sort of thing. So it's just some kind of common sense thinking when you're laying something out like this.
So it says that tables must be tagged or marked as layout tables. And what that's talking about is sometimes we use tables more as like a graphic organizer, which is what this one is, just to organize sentences and phrases. And sometimes you use tables like the stereotypical spreadsheet with lots of numbers and formulas and everything. So what the screen reader needs to know is this table just for layout purposes to organize your text? Or does this table have numbers in it? Should it be read in columns or should it be read in rows? Is there a header that needs to be read? You know, do I need to start reading the header? Can I skip the header? You know, what all, I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see me. It just needs more information to be able to read those tables correctly. And you see here, I also have a table within a table, which is everybody's favorite. Can you see anything wrong with the words that I have here? You can type it in the chat.
Font is too big. Coloring font words are not written on one line. Cursive colors. Colors are the problem here, and cursive too, right?
Mm-hmm. I made it red and green on purpose, and it says write your reasons in this color, write the in green, and write the seasons in this color in red. And the reason why that's a major problem is because red-green color blindness is the most common form of color blindness. And you have no indication of what the color is other than it says this color. So if you can't see color, you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And a kid I have never seen a kid have an IEP just for color blindness.
No. Somebody said you shouldn't state the child has an IEP, Katie.
Yes. You would think that would be common knowledge, but I know of a situation where a teacher called out a student for having an IEP in front of the whole class. So you also need to be mindful of any confidential information you put in your documents, anything that's not school appropriate. You know, if you don't want to see it on the front page of the Washington Post tomorrow, don't put it in your document. I know that it's sort of a really tired old song that you've heard a million times before, but I felt like it was worth mentioning in these digital times just to be careful with what kind of content you put in your documents.
Somebody said, why do you have to type in a certain color purpose of that, Katie?
Why what?
What's the purpose of having to type in a certain color?
There is no purpose here. That's part of the problem.
It's just a cutesy teacher thing, I think, more than anything, right?
Yeah.
And Larissa, thank you, Larissa. She said when UDL works best, when it works best for one kiddo, it works best for everybody, right? They all need that.
Preach.
Adjust it and make it accessible to everybody. That the best situation. Yeah.
And remember, I heard colleagues of mine with young kids talking about how their young kids who don't have IEPs were struggling with how to input information into these documents. Where do I click in this weird text box? There's an invisible text box. There's an invisible table. And by invisible, I mean that the person had set the line color to white so that it looks kind of neater. You don't see all the lines, but then you don't realize that there's actually a table there. So leaving spaces to type in can end up creating more of a mess than just assuming that they'll click where they want to type and start typing instead of making a constrictive box where they are forced to type. And if they don't type there, it messes everything up. Let's keep looking through Grackle. High color contrast should be used. And it is angry with my green on white right here. But notice that it didn't pick up that this is also very bad contrast. And there are some vision impairments where it's difficult for you to see the difference between different colors or different color saturation. So like different shades of gray might all look like the same shade of gray. And so best practice is to have a really strong contrast between your words and your background, which is why we usually type black on white, and why this gray on white is really hard to read. But notice that it didn't catch that. It didn't catch about the background color, or that it's white on gray. It caught this down here. So if before I added this down here, it said that the contrast was fine in the document. So it's also something that you need to be aware of when you're designing your document, because Grackle might not catch everything. Lengthy paragraph.
See all those ones that have green checks that are red dot next to them, right? That means that there's still things you probably should fix since there's some red there, right? Those are things that have warnings. So those are probably still things to look at. That's talking about some of the font sizes being too small, using all caps is wrong, right?
And it even says that my links are informative, which means that the text that you click on actually tells about the link. But if you look right here, I actually have a link that's just a big long mess of random numbers and letters, and is not informative, and Grackle didn't catch it. So again, we just want you to be aware of this stuff. Yeah, it said all cap styling should be avoided, and it was a green check mark, but there was all cap styling right there. So how would we fix this? Let me copy. Delete it and start over. I would tend to agree. But if you must use that activity, this is how I came up with it. I tried to use very simple words. My pictures are much bigger. I typed a brief description of the picture under the picture, as well as giving it alt text. I didn't use tables, so you can just click, and wherever you click, it'll come up right there, and you can just start typing your answer. It's just much cleaner. It's easier to look at. It's easier to access. There's much less muss and fuss to worry about. So on here, we wanted to tell you some good design tips in general, not just for kids with disabilities, but when making these digital assignments in general. Write in plain English. Try not to use superfluous vocabulary words if you don't need to, like the word superfluous. And one thing that this assignment didn't do very well that I would encourage you guys to do is to use video, audio, and text to communicate the same message. So that if you have trouble with your vision, you can still get it through your hearing. If you have trouble with your hearing, you can get it through your vision. If you have trouble processing things with your ears, then maybe you can read the text with your eyes. However you take in information best. And Schoology is actually really good for that. It gives you the opportunity to post videos that explain, or just audio that explains, or text that explains, and try and make it as multimodal as possible. And then let the students choose how they get that information. So that way, even if you overlook some accessibility in one part, you'll still catch them on the next part because you've presented your information in several different ways. Keep your layout uncluttered and consistent so that it's easy to follow, easy to go through. Use readable fonts, use visuals and images that are relevant. Bitmoji classrooms are adorable and could be a nightmare for a student with a vision impairment, or a student with a fine motor impairment that has trouble clicking on really small boxes. It's tempting sometimes to just load up your documents with decorative pictures and fancy borders and stuff like that, but it can also just make it really distracting and more difficult to access. Minimize scrolling when possible. Try and have as much of the relevant information on screen at a time as you can. You saw how annoying those big page breaks were. Break your information into manageable chunks and offer lots of different options for your students to respond. Schoology is also good at that. If you have a discussion topic, accept audio response, accept a video response, accept a photo response, accept a typed response. However they feel that they can communicate best with you, let them do that. And they're happier, you're happier, they actually learn the information, and it's just good design for everyone. Also, I wanted to throw out there, I know that we don't have a lot of kids that are truly vision impaired to the point of being legally and functionally blind, or hearing impaired to the point of being legally and functionally deaf. In my 10 schools, I know of one kid that is hearing impaired to the point where he needs a sign language interpreter with him all day. But don't freak out if you get a kid with, we call them low incidence disabilities, where you don't encounter that disability that often. That student will have a vision teacher or a deaf and hard of hearing teacher on their Phoenix team. And you can reach out to that person and ask them how you can make the materials accessible to that student. You probably have never encountered a student like that, but they work with those students every single day. That's their job. So they are going to know what the latest and greatest is in terms of the technology. They're going to have experience with what works for students who are in the same situation as your student. You can also reach out to us, the SIPATs at your school, and your IFT, and really figure out how to work with those students. So don't panic if you get a student like that. And if you're making all your materials accessible anyway, then you have even less need to panic. Karen, you want to talk about our resources?
Yep. Got some resources for you here. The first one's about making hyperdocs work, but I don't think we're using those anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong. The WebAIM accessibility site is about color blindness, about font sizes and font styles, that sort of thing. There's some Google accessibility, some Chromebook accessibility for you, Grackle Talks, little how-to, reading right for Windows, scanning tool, because sometimes you need to scan a document in. Creating accessible PDFs, Adobe, just lots of things for you to consider as you put your Schoology classrooms together, right? graphic, somebody asked how to make a graphic banner more accessible.
Do you need the graphic banner?
Somebody does. I would have to
I mean,
see
you
it.
you well could. It wasn't meant to be a rhetorical question. You would have to alt tag it and describe it in your alt tag well enough so that the person could use it so that the student could get the information that the graphic banner conveys. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I teach high school science, and having links to our, like, automatically take you to explorelearning.com, or things that aren't in LCPS Go that are like where they would go for their labs and stuff like that. Like boxes and a graphic banner, that's a nice, easy place for them to access that, but be accessible, I guess. Like at the top of your Schoology page where they can click like hyperlinked images that they can click to go where you need them to go for easy access to stuff they're going to use all the time. Yes.
It's a really good question.
It's like a lot of people are making the Bitmoji classrooms that you say are so cluttered and stuff. So it's like, what can you do to unclutter that somewhat and make it accessible?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to think because I don't know if Schoology lets you do alt text on your images like that.
Show them ours, Katie. Is ours there? Is that what that Schoology thing is that you've got up there, or what? I think ours is simple. Oh.
Ready to go. This, Karen?
Yeah, I mean, ours are really simple, I guess, if we got our color one or whatever.
That's a really excellent question, and I'm going to be honest with you. I have not played around enough in Schoology.
No.
As I don't teach a class. I haven't really been able to figure that out or had the opportunity to figure that out. I would encourage you to maybe also have a list of links that aren't just an image, because if something is being read aloud, it will read the text of that link. So if it says, click here to get to X, click here to get to Y, is there any way you could make a sort of list like that of just text as well as your graphic banner to direct students to external websites?
Why don't you, Lynn or somebody else, do you want to show us your graphic banner? Show us what you're talking about.
Okay.
Let me try.
Sorry,
Our
we don't
banner,
want to put
you're talking about, we can play with it a little bit.
So I guess I should share my screen.
Yeah. I'm just curious what these look like, you know?
Kristen, I think that would be fine. We're not saying don't use images. We're just saying make sure that there's text somehow, some way that explains what your image is in case there's somebody who can't see pictures. Obviously, it's good practice to have images and everything.
I made mine that they actually do say click here, but not everybody does.
Yeah, I like that.
And then I have like I haven't put them in all my classes, but something like this.
I like that.
So,
I think that's great.
I teach history, which is why I went with the American flag sort of theme here. A lot of people just have click here or, contact info, or, I don't know if it will be able to read it with the buttons that were provided by my IFT. But
yeah, no, I like the way it looks. I like that. I think this
yeah,
is
it looks
easy to
really
navigate,
good. I'm hoping that do you have read and write on your computer?
I hope so.
I don't see it up there, but
Why don't you, if you have read and write, why don't you turn it on and then see if
Where would it would be up here, right? I have Grackle, I know, but I don't know about read and write.
Click the 3 dots. Click those 3 dots and go down to tools.
Okay, then.
Kayla wants to show us hers as well.
All right. So she might have already the read write.
Yeah, Kayla, show us yours. I think this is good doing a little show and tell. I think it's good.
I mean, this is really what we wanted it this to be.
To help each other out, you know?
Yeah, we didn't want to just talk at you guys. We wanted to be like, all right, let's problem solve. Yeah, Kayla, click on, go to your Schoology and click on
So
read and write and see if you can read it out loud.
I have read and write here, and then this banner is it's just a table with headings here, and then the links, like you click here for, you know, this was just for me. It's not actually for my students yet, but something I guess similar.
So she knows her read and write. Look at her go right to that hover speech like a pro.
Yeah. Fine.
It calls it Schoology.
Oh, Schoology.
Oh God.
It's reading hyperlinks, yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that when it's talking, but when I hover over the picture with hover text, it started reading the
link. Which is really long and awful.
Like 4C, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah,
it was, so I wouldn't want them to read that, but it does read the headings.
Read the headings, yeah, that's good.
This is Crystal. There's a way in Grackle you can edit that. So you can edit the text so it reads something besides the actual link.
That wouldn't work in, would Grackle check Schoology though? I don't think it would it, Karen?
I don't know. That may be a Chris Big Eye question.
Here,
yeah,
let's find out.
Play with that.
It wasn't checking.
No, it's just for G
It wasn't checking mine.
What's up, Andy?
It wasn't like I tried Grackle on Schoology and it wouldn't do anything with like what was on the screen. So I don't know if it's going to read it.
It's not. It's just for G Suite. It specifically says Grackle Accessibility Checker for G Suite.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But one quick thing that you can do is do exactly what Kayla just did and just explore Schoology with that hover text. She showed you how to do it beautifully. And think, okay, if you're going to have students that aren't going to be able to read well for whatever reason. We all get them, whether or not they have IEPs, God bless them. They're on the struggle bus and that's okay. I don't mean that offensively at all. It's just they might not know English. They might struggle with the vision part of it, that just for whatever reason. So I would encourage you on your Schoology page to do what Kayla did. Turn on hover speech, that little bubble with the arrow, and just go around your page and see how the software is reading your Schoology page. And if you don't like the way that it's reading it, if you feel like it's making it more confusing, then I would encourage you to try and change it to be more friendly to read aloud.
You know what I was just thinking, Katie? Is you might be able to change the hyperlink for the link to get to whatever the other page is. You might change that hyperlink to something simple, to whatever page it is. This is the science page, right? This is the whatever. Yeah. You could change that title of it, even make it a bit.ly and change that title to something short, and then it wouldn't read all that 105 little characters,
I think that you can record it. My issue with read and write is because I teach high school biology, just like mispronounce Schoology instead of Schoology, it mispronounces the science terms all the time. And then my kids, especially with autism or something like that, that can't get over the mispronunciation of the word, they are totally thrown for a loop, and it's like it's a whole new thing because the thing's reading it wrong. So they need me to physically read it. So I think with Schoology, I've got to record my own voice physically reading it for them to click.
I think you're right. I think that would be better. I think that would be better to record your own voice.
Kayla, I would actually encourage you to reach out to Text Help and give them that as feedback, because they're an amazing company, and that could, that may be something that they need to work on. You can reach out to them on Twitter, just Text Help, and let them know, hey, this is something that my students are struggling with, because they might not know. And I would hate for you to have to record yourself reading all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Hey, do you guys want to see just a minute of Microsoft Word, how to do accessibility checking in Word? You guys like to see that real quick? If we get any yeses.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that goes for you guys too. If Read and Write isn't doing something that you need it to do, reach out to Text Help and let them know.
Yeah, they're very
they're not. They're a good company. They're not a very. They're not like a Microsoft-sized company, and they listen to all their teacher feedback. So definitely reach out to them and let them know if the software isn't doing something that you need it to be doing.
So here's a little Word doc. Now look you guys right here. Do you see that on the home screen, the home page? There's a dictation button now. Did you guys know that? So you can talk and type into your Word document, which might be a huge help.
Karen dictated this whole thing in Latin just for you guys.
I did, just to see how it would go. Even though it's not spoken language, but okay, I did. So there's a dictation button, which I think is great. I don't think a lot of people know about. If I go to the review tab at the top, there's also a read aloud button now. So it's going to read you what's on the page, which is fantastic. So you don't have to use Read and Write. You can just have this read it. Because I know I've experienced that teachers are posting Microsoft Word documents into their Google Classrooms and now probably into their Schoologies, right? So we need to play with some of these Microsoft tools too. Okay, but right here, I've got a check accessibility button. And so when I click on that, I get the same sort of thing as in Grackle, where I get a little text box on the side here that's talking about, you know, some things that are wrong with this document, right? So let's go back and look. It's saying the errors, that the photos are missing the alt text, just like we experienced with Grackle, right? So I can go look at the pictures they're talking about here, click on this. And so this picture doesn't have any alt text, right? And if I go to this drop-down menu, you can add a description, right? You can mark it as decorative, which is what we talked about with Grackle as well. If it's something that doesn't have any meaning, you can mark it as decorative, but I think this does. You would add a description. Or look at this, they've got to suggest a description for me. So I'm going to click on that and see what it comes up with. Oh, it just went away. I don't know what it called it. Huh. That's interesting.
It called the
So there's
one on the
another
first
picture.
cell phone screen the first time we tried it.
Yeah. It said it was a cell phone. That's right. So this now says the images are not in line with the text. So it's talking about these pictures that are right justified here. It doesn't like that, and it's probably about all this text wrapped around it too. And now here's some things, those were errors, right? And now down here, it's warnings. So now it says hard to read text contrast, right? And so on page 1, the hard to read text contrast is here, right? Oh, here's the alt text that it suggested. I'm sorry. Here's the alt text it suggested. I still don't see it, but same thing like Katie mentioned. So now I can click on this image in my document and I can right click and I can edit the alt text here, right? So I can do the same thing. I can insert a caption to go with this picture if I want to put a caption underneath it. I can also put alt text this way by just right clicking on it, right? So you can keep the accessibility checker as you're working, which is a great thing to do, right? And then additional information. So they've got some steps to walk you through, right? Click on the picture, image, select edit alt text, right? It walks you through how to do it, which is fantastic too. So this is just a really, really great, really simple accessibility checker in Microsoft Word that you can use. There's also more about making documents accessible, a whole lot more information for you. But I think this is another good tool to sort of get in the habit of using, right? So it's another tool that's in your toolbox. I think that's what this COVID thing has done for us, you guys. I think it has put, I know personally for me, it's put a lot more tools in my toolbox that I didn't have before this started, right? Because I've had to do things differently and use different tools. And I think it's put a lot more tools in my toolbox that I can now take with me and use in the future. So.
Awesome. Do you guys have any more questions?
Questions, you guys, concerns? And like Katie mentioned, reach out to your IFTs, reach out to your assistive technology person at your school. But if you've got questions for Katie or I, you're welcome to email either one of us as well. We're happy to answer your questions and work with you on things.
You are welcome, guys.
You guys.
Remember, the county's got a ton of specialists, so even if you haven't seen something before, somebody else has. They'll know.
Yeah, very true. Very true. There'll be somebody that knows about it. That's right.
Where is the list of all of us in the schools we support? Where is that list, Karen? Do we have that list yet?
Oh, it's on our webpage, lcps.org/AT, you guys, is the AT webpage. And right on there are the staff, which staff has which school.
I don't think that's clickable. Good job, Miss Katie.
There you go. Yeah, lcps.org/AT. AT webpage, I love it. Well, thank you all very much. We hope you enjoyed the last session, more session.
Karen, I think the next one we need to do needs to be on Schoology accessibility specifically.
I totally agree. We definitely need some. I mean, I think there probably might be sessions even today on that. I don't know, but I wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that our audience has told us that that's definitely something that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. They're playing with it and trying it, but there's still some things that work.
Yeah. I'll make a note because we have an AT meeting tomorrow. So
we do. Yep.
I'll make a note in my planner to bring up to Chris, our department head, that we were getting a lot of questions about Schoology accessibility, and it's something that we as a team need to explore more and reach out more to you guys and help you guys.
I'm wondering if there's another accessibility checker for Schoology, just like there is Grackle. There's probably another one that works with that, that we just don't know about yet. But
I found a document about Schoology accessibility. It was 4 years old, so I'm not sure. For the handful of people that are left, is that something that you feel like there's a need for? Is training or information on how to make Schoology accessible? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. We will get on it. We will get on it, guys. We will figure it out. Cool. You guys are amazing. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Enjoy your last session.